This video is brought to you by me, the ones to let you know about the new C&C community website. We've got easy setup guides, filtered news from C&C sites, current live streams, the trending remastered mods and maps, and the TD and RA quick play leaderboards. If you look really carefully, you'll be able to see that I'm not on this list. If you like the business, then how fortuitous, because this site is the business. Link in the description, that's how you do it. Alright, music trivia, Command & Conquer Remastered Collection contains 203 music tracks representing almost every single track from Command & Conquer, the Covert Ops, Soul Survivor, Red Alert, Counter-Strike, The Aftermath, and Retaliation, including all known rare tracks that didn't make the original releases. These tracks fall under the following categories: the classic tracks, which are the 22 kHz compressed .org files direct from the original games, remastered tracks, which are full 44 kHz CD quality versions of every single track, the OST variants of a small number of Tib Dawn tracks, which had additional voice lines in the original CD release, but which were removed from the original games due to the concern that they would clash with the in-game voices, a collection of 22 new remixes by Frank Klepacki and the Tiberian Sons, and 8 bonus tracks, which are unlocked by completing missions, including never-before-heard cut tracks from Frank's archives. There are only a small number of music tracks which aren't included, being the console soundtrack remixes, Map1.org from Soul Survivor, Destructible Times from Tib Dawn, though that does still play in the credits, and the alternate versions of some of the Tib Dawn tracks that had voice samples, which could be enabled in the original game in Conquer.ini.
It's not good. It doesn't look good. Losing control. I can't control it.
It's not good. It doesn't look good. I'm losing control. I can't control it.
For the most part, the included OST versions of these tracks are the better versions anyway. It sounds like these old versions were earlier tests, as the voices in the CD versions are of a higher quality. But the only omission that stands out to me is the alternate version of To Be Feared, which not only included voice samples which the OST version does not,
they are enemies to be feared,
but is also shorter and ends with an extended ambient section.
He knew more about what I was going to do than I did.
A small number of the original music tapes have unfortunately been lost over the years. While the remastered versions of most of the music is the original music from before the files were compressed to fit on the discs, 6 of the tracks have been recreated by Frank from scratch. Frank had a mirror of his Westwood studio at home and still owns much of the same equipment. So for these tracks, he rebuilt them as close as he could using the original gear and samples he used to make them back in the 90s. These include Heartbreak, a rare track from Tib Dawn that appears in the files and was supposed to be activated along with the alternate sample tracks, but which is omitted and never actually plays. Snake and Fogger from Red Alert, both intro menu and map theme from Red Alert, and the elusive Awaiting. This track was a lost track from Red Alert. It appears in the game files as await_r.ord, and reappears in the expansions as await.ord, though despite the name change it's the exact same file. There has been fan speculation over the years that this track may have been called Afterlife, though I'm not sure where exactly that name comes from, as no track by that name appears in any form in any game. Addendum. It appears a track named Afterlife with a space appeared as track 1 on a promo disc for an issue of Computer Gaming World Russian edition from 2002. I don't have a copy, obviously this comes from an entry on Discogs, credits to Thompson's26 for the find, but the listed track length aligns with that of Awaiting, so it's clearly the same track. Question is, where did the authors of the promo CD get the name? I'd like to thank Frank for taking the time to respond to my very silly question, and from the gent himself, the track was always called Awaiting. Await was just an abbreviation from the game files, and Afterlife is not an alternate name for this track. It somehow came about later and was not Frank's doing. Somehow, this name developed amongst the fanbase. Anyway, there's an interesting difference in the track Canyon Chase. The classic version is only 38 seconds long, which was the version which appeared in the original game. Canyon Chase is called ind2.ord in the files, leading to its alternate name Industrial 2. Its proper name comes from the fact that this track was originally composed to accompany the cutscene bcanyon.vqa, rather than as gameplay music, but ended up in the game anyway. The remastered version is 2 minutes 42, with long atmospheric sections. It appears that this is not an original unabridged version, but an extended remaster, perhaps because the original was the shortest track in the jukebox, ignoring menu music. The actual shortest track would be Nod's score theme at 34 seconds, which along with Nod's map theme were intended to play during the Nod campaign and are in the files of the DOS release, but which are never made to play, in favour of GDI map theme and Great Shot. All of the above are in the remastered jukebox, including the alternate Great Shot Extended. While Nod map theme is finally used in the Nod campaign. By the way, the original Great Shot Extended was one of the tracks in the original to have alternate early voice samples. The version of the remasters instead has the arguably better samples from the OST version.
Great shot! Return to base immediately. Great shot! Return to base immediately.
Of the 8 bonus tracks, 4 were known about prior to the remasters. C&C Credits Outtakes theme and Journey were both previously hosted on Frank's website Jukebox.
I hope I can trust you with this. TDI. Let's cut that, shall we?
Credits Outtakes theme used to be in the now removed Rare Tracks section, alongside Die, Heartbreak and Reaching Out, which are all also available in the remasters, while the fantastic Journey was briefly added to the Red Alert section. Until the remasters, Journey had never appeared in any game files, only ever having appeared on Frank's site, and even then only for a short time. Surf No Mercy is a well-known classic track. It appears as a hidden bonus on the Red Alert OST at the end of Smash, and became associated with It Came From Red Alert, the Giant Ants mini-campaign featuring in the end cutscene. Hellmarch Original Demo is an earlier mix of the infamous track, with a much crunchier guitar. It's known to have appeared in an early trailer for the game. The other 4 bonus tracks, Tank Battle, Concrete, The Plan and The Truth Is a Lie, have, to my knowledge, never before been made public. Radio 2 Remix returns, featuring audio samples from in-game.
When you kill one, it is a tragedy. When you kill 10 million, it is a statistic.
Shake it, baby!
One of these is a line from The Thief.
Time for a little 5-finger discount.
This sound file isn't actually in the game, it was removed during development, but is found in the files of the recently uncovered Red Alert beta.
Time for a little 5-finger discount.
The Tiberian Sons are a band featuring Tony Dickinson, Connor Engstrom, Travis Moberg, and Max Noel. 21 of the 22 new remixes by Frank and the Tiberian Sons are studio recordings of the set from their live show at MagFest 2019. The new piece is a remix of Just Do It Up, due to popular demand. Of the top 10 fan-voted tracks in a Reddit poll on the C&C subreddit, Just Do It Up was the only one not already covered by the MagFest setlist. These studio recordings are based faithfully on the arrangements from the live show, including mostly the same sound samples and voice clips, of which many had been re-recorded by Frank, such as fresh takes of his commando quips for Got a Present For Ya.
That was left-handed.
The Yuri's Revenge theme Brain Freeze also matches the live arrangement, with a nuts drum solo by Frank that runs for the second half of the track. While many of the sound samples are the same as those from the original from Yuri's, the remix uses a sound sample that also featured in Smash.
The product of a tortured brain. Feeling of helplessness is your best friend, savage.
At the end of the drum solo in the MagFest mix, the pause is bridged, I'm sure there's a musical term for that, by a quote from Dr. Gregor Zielinski, played by
Peter Stormare.
That guy, which was taken from a promotional remix for Red Alert 3.
Third time's a charm. One.
Listen up.
The only thing I can say about that is, oh, snap.
In the version for the remaster, this part is replaced with a laughter sample from the start. The Zielinski quip worked really well in the live show, particularly as it was accompanied with the graphics by Nate Horsfall, and also since the drum solo was clearly devised as something for the live show. I'm not sure whether it was replaced for this reason, or if it was perhaps for some rights concern involving the actor. That's purely speculation, don't quote me on that. The remix of No Mercy, in keeping with the live version, features a mix of the same newly recorded voice samples to mimic the samples from the OST version, and a collection of Kane's quotes from Tib Dawn and Tib's son, also featuring a famous clip of Anton Slavik.
No mercy. Ow, ow, ow. Mercy is for the weak. Ow, ow, ow.
I see the future.
Ow, ow, ow. The Tiberian sun has risen in the name of Cain. In the name of Cain.
These quotes were accompanied by the cutscenes in the live show. When No Mercy played in the background of the remastered reveal, a clip of Tibson played in time to the music,
recorded by Frank Klepacki and the Tiberian Sons.
Tiberian sun has risen.
which some people took as a hint for a potential Tibson remastered, though this was just because the quote is a part of the remix. If you haven't seen the show, by the way, it's a treat, there's a link in the description. A few of the other tracks have also been adjusted, mainly in extending the ones that were bunged together into groups for the live show. During the bass guitar solo in Militant Force, you can very faintly hear a short rendition of Act on Instinct. The intro section of Tiberian Sun's Hell March doesn't feature the extended techno section from the original, a distinction it shares with the original demo. The techno section was added to better transition from Hellmarch to the less rocky music in Red Alert. With the addition of the remasters and discounting unnamed cutscene-only music, we can now bring the representation in official C&C soundtracks of Hellmarch up to 10, and No Mercy to 11. No Mercy remains the most prolific theme in Command & Conquer. It's interesting that 6 of the tracks that reference No Mercy are Red Alert tracks. The Red Alert series music has historically referenced music from the Tib games, but I can only name one time that this has happened in reverse. Cabal's theme from Firestorm, Slave to the System, features the same characteristic riff that was first heard in Radio 2 Remix. The addition of the Tiberian Suns remixes means that the Remastered Collection contains music from every single C&C that Frank has composed for. The only exceptions are technicalities, if you counted Uprising as separate from Red Alert 3, and the fact that Frank did compose a demo for Generals, but which was never used. Red Alert 3 is here represented by the 2 medleys, mixing Hellmarch 3 and Grinder 2 with their counterparts from Red Alert 2. During the live show, Frank dedicated Grinder Medley to John Bain, or Total Biscuit, a renowned game critic and fan of Command & Conquer.
You may know him by a few different names, such as the Cynical Brit, such as Total Biscuit, but I know him as John Bain. And he loved Command & Conquer music, especially the heavy rockin' stuff. And I want to send this out to John Bain tonight.
Dusk Hour is the only track among the remixes not composed solely by Frank. During the development of Tiberian Sun, he collaborated with Jarrid Mendelson on 3 tracks, being Dusk Hour, Flurry and Mutants, and Jarrid would go on to compose an additional 6 tracks solo. This distinction is shared by 2 other tracks in the Remastered Collection. Tiberian Dawn contains a rendition of Ride of the Valkyries by Richard Wagner, which was never meant to be in the original soundtrack, but was used as a stand-in for testing and was retained in the game files. It was a big surprise to see it represented here in the remasters in high quality. Genuinely, I thought this one would have been cut. Destructible Times also returns to Tib Dawn. It was a song by the band I Am, for which Frank was the drummer, and was used as a nod credits theme at the request of Westwood. The song is retained in the credits cutscene, though as with the original game, doesn't appear in the jukebox. In 2010, the I Am vocalist Greg Greer unsuccessfully sued EA for the use of the track, on the grounds that he had never signed a license with EA themselves. Having inherited Westwood's assets, EA had valid license for use of the track for the intended purpose as a credits theme in the game. When Jim Turn announced the poll for the fans' favourite tracks, the poll was praised for including many of the more obscure tracks, but Jim Turn noted the absence of Destructible Times, citing the license difficulties. Given that the song appears in the credits of the remaster but not in the jukebox, it seems to be the case that the license EA still holds covers the use of the song for this same purpose, but may not cover the use elsewhere in the game. Likewise, the music from Disc 2 of the German Alarmstufenrot soundtrack is not included, due to licensing. While most of the music was commercial music which was compiled due to it fitting the theme of the game, the headline track, Crush C&C Mix by Cobalt 60, was a song produced with Crush as its basis specifically for this soundtrack. It never appeared in the game and isn't featured in the remasters, again licensing. My final asterisk trivia involves a piece of music that doesn't even appear in the collection. Soviet March was an iconic orchestral piece composed by James Hannigan as the main theme of Red Alert 3, sharing the role with Hellmarch 3. The key art of the remasters was designed by longtime community member Chuch, the pronunciation of whose name I am guessing. There is an Easter egg in the key art, where the faint text seen on Volkov's face is actually the lyrics for Soviet March. Alright, last and least, my favourite C&C music trivia, and also by far the most tedious, so I'll keep it short. Several tracks have multiple names, and I'm a massive nerd for finding the quote-unquote true names, which was actually the catalyst for the original video. All the previous sources, the in-game names, the OSTs, and Frank's Jukebox, have all gotten some things wrong. And while the remasters are the best source to date, there's still a few things I disagree with, and some tracks that I think I can assert have errors. This section of the script was initially quite a lot longer and would have probably run for about a third of the total playtime, so let's condense it right down to simply listing the names that are debatable, questionable, or which I outright think are in error, and leave it at that. Though, just to mention one thing, I'm delighted that the remasters have gotten Face the Enemy 1 and 2 the correct way round. And yes, I do recognise that I'm splitting the quarks that make up a hair at this point. Massive thanks to Frank Klepacki and the Tiberian Sons for putting together one of the greatest soundtracks in gaming, and what is an absolute labour of love. And special thanks to Neogoods and CC Hyper for their input on this script. If there's any errors, blame me, I'll leave a sticky comment with any corrections. If you enjoyed this video, you might enjoy our previous obscure music trivia video which covers the entire C&C franchise. If you're interested in the lore, you might be a lawyer. My name is Stefan, thank you so much for watching. Pieter Stormare.